They're both together. Did you just download The Sims 4 for free? Well, I am so excited for you because The Sims 4 is a huge tool with a lot of different customization options to let you play with your Sims however you want. See, or got Maxwell here. It's really a lot of directional sim and relationship using details to give your Sim that storytelling.
Something with a foundation of just you guys talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't, you don't want to build a foundation off of something that is may come and go. If our relationship is solid from the foundation, we can build on that. You know what I mean? And we don't like to sit with a lot of guests that we don't have some type of personal relationship, because it's like I could sit here and talk to somebody I don't know and ask them all the questions that every other outlet has asked them. But when we've actually hung out and kicked it on a real level and had real conversations off camera, and you know how I am, the type of dude I am, the conversation on camera is gonna be different.
Real life, that's real shit.
So it's like I fuck with a lot. Like, damn, I would like to talk to you, but it's like I don't really know you and I don't want to interview you. I'm not Barbara Walters. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and interview you and grill you. Like, so when you said this line, how did that?
Or Gail King.
Yeah, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because
Better
people
pizza.
ask me like, how do I
Papa
become
John's.
a rapper interviewer?
Zwei,
I'm
zwei.
just like thinking in my head
Nach
like,
2-0, der lag 2-0 hinten.
because there's a lot
Ja,
of
ich
fucking
brauch's
people
nicht sagen,
doing
oder?
this. Like,
Ganz kurz
I'm not sure what
weil-
your angle's gonna be. That's gonna be way different, unless you can find a pocket of artists that people aren't really talking to, which I think that's probably the best bet.
Yeah, or just be a heavy music guy. Know the artist that you're talking to. Know
Right.
his music. Know his or her story.
The more specialized your knowledge is.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and I think your approach, the less journalistic way, has been the best part of your interviews. It's way more of a conversation than, we love Rap Radar because they are actual journalists. And when we want to watch the journalistic interview, we go to them. But with you, it feels like actual combo to some degree. Nori's the one where he's, for the most part, very familiar and has a long history with the guest and can get them to open up a way they never would. I think the guest-based podcasts all have different niches, which I think is cool. But with our breakup and that whole show, the live show shit we've been doing, has proven to me that guest shit is just not the best route all the time. Because obviously things end no matter what you want to do. But if you have a core fan base that is there to see you and they're not there for the guest, you'll be fine forever. Because no matter what, Mo and I could set up some microphones and just talk.
Right.
That can be proven.
They actually hate
They're
when we
not
have
coming.
guests.
Yeah, like they're not coming here
They hate
just
what?
because
They
we
hate
want to
when
have
we
guests.
Oh yeah, we deal with
Our
that
audience,
too.
They
Yeah.
hate when we have guests, and it's like,
There's a few guests that they'll appreciate, but largely they hate them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh.
yeah,
100%.
but, it's an interesting, just the way people like, oh yeah, nah, don't sit down with this person. This was whack. And it's like, damn, I thought y'all would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
We just want to hear y'all.
But if the thumbnail said Rory and Mal interview Steven Seagal, I think people would, at least they know what they're going in on. But if they click on their
That's
weekly
just funny,
episode,
World Boss incoming! World Boss activate! World Boss incoming! World Boss activate! Taken down! They couldn't hold the lead. Right in the hand. World Boss incoming. World Boss activate! Streak stopped. hold the lead. Taken down. They couldn't hold the lead. World Boss incoming! World Boss activate! Taken down.
cheesecake. We call it Forever Cheesecake. This is the Cherry Chupacabra edition. I'm gonna change this color. This will be more eye-poppingly neon. This will be a little different. It's getting there though. We're at about 91%.
Did your favorite dress up for tonight's show? No tie, no shirt and slack, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are. We just...
The reality is, when you blow up, they're gonna show up. When you blow up, they're gonna show up. Listen, that journey you taking is gonna be a lonely journey. You're gonna be by yourself. You know why? A lot of people think they're bigger than your journey. They think, oh no, I'm too big to be struggling with them. I'm too big to be supporting them during their journey. Oh, I can't wait for them till they get stronger. No, I'm not gonna feed them with positivity. I'm not gonna feed them to make them keep moving. I'm not gonna give them that energy. So when you blow up, they're gonna show up. But you know what? They just gonna identify themselves. They're gonna identify themselves that they're a fraud, that they fake. And they only wanna be around for the win. They want to come there for the celebration. Oh, let's pop the bottle. Oh, no, you can't be a part of the celebration. You know why? Because you ain't want to be a part of the journey. You was too big. You thought you was too big, too this, too that, too popular for the journey. You ain't gonna be there. Don't show up when I blow up, and it's just like that.
Did your favorite dress up for tonight's show?
The reality is, when you blow up, they gonna show up. When you blow up, they gonna show up. Listen, that journey you taking is gonna be a lonely journey. You're gonna be by yourself. You know why? A lot of people think they're bigger than your journey. They think, oh no, I'm too big to be struggling with them. I'm too big to be supporting them during their journey. Oh, I can't wait for them till they get stronger. No, I'm not gonna feed them with positivity. I'm not gonna feed them to make them keep moving. I'm not gonna give them that energy. So when you blow up, they're gonna show up. But you know what? They just gonna identify themselves. They're gonna identify themselves that they're a fraud, that they fake. And they only want to be around for the win. They want to come there for the celebration. Oh, let's pop the bottle. Oh, no, you can't be a part of the celebration. You know why? Because you ain't want to be a part of the journey. You was too big. You thought you was too big, too this, too that, too popular for the journey. You ain't gonna be there. Don't show up when I blow up, and it's just like that. The reality is, when you blow up, they gonna show up. When you blow up, they're gonna show up. Listen, that journey you taking is gonna be a lonely journey. You're gonna be by yourself. You know why? A lot of people think they're bigger than your journey. They think, oh no, I'm too big to be struggling with them. I'm too big to be supporting them during their journey. The reality is,
last call. She's not Cat Medina.
Now that's the shakaroni.
Dang, that's huge.
Oh, that's my piece of the shakaroni. That's the biggest one we make. Extra pepperoni, extra cheese on that thing.
Somebody say me a slice?
No.
They donate $1 from every shakaroni to the Papa John's Foundation.
Shakaroni. Oh, bring it in. Shakaroni. Get on beat. Shakaroni. Shakaroni. Shake that wig on, come on. Shakaroni. You guys were so off beat. Okay, all right, let's eat.
But they're different, though.
Yeah, dwarfs are. I mean, gnomes are completely useless. Why would you play a gnome?
Okay, so you aren't a gnome enjoyer. All right, is Jack? How are you? Would you play a gnome if you had to?
I don't play short characters.
Last night, Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz had a back and forth. It started with Conor tweeting this. He wrote, "This Power Slap Championships is growing on me. Who doesn't like watching good quality clatters?" He continued, "Is it a flip of a coin who gets to go first? How long do they have to recover before they get to throw their counter? Or is it over if they're KO'd? Fascinating. I'm attending one of these 100%. Is this Dana's? WTF is this madness, Dana? I'm in." He followed up with me versus Nate on it for the title. "Maybe that's a title you'd have a better chance of coming close to winning, Nate, you little slapper." Nate replied with this, "Would I already beat you at that game too?" He continued, "If submissions weren't allowed, I knocked you out way faster than Floyd did." He followed up with, "But it was real, so I choked you better and faster than Kebab did." He ended it off with, "Boom roasted." And Conor replied, "Got you back with concussions. Real smacks." Jimmy Crute, in our interview from earlier this week, discusses being on a losing skid for the first time in his MMA career. He's currently coming off a TKO loss to Anthony Smith in April of 2021 and a KO loss to Jamal Hill in December of 2021. Jimmy also reveals he hasn't even been able to watch MMA until recently due to being so drained. Check out our full interview with Jimmy over on our second channel. Links in the description.
Mate, as far as I'm concerned, I'm making my debut. That person doesn't exist anymore. The person you seen in December last year, he doesn't exist anymore. I'm making my professional debut in this fight. Everything in the past, wins, losses, I'm not carrying them with me anymore. I'm starting fresh.
Were you still watching it actively?
No, I'd tune into it. I didn't hate the sport. I love the sport. I always loved the sport, but I was so drained from the sport. There was nothing left in me. I had to refill my cup. I wouldn't say I always loved the sport. It was always the thing that I wanted to do, but I just had nothing left in me. I given all.
Do you watch it now?
Yes, I love watching it. I love watching all combat sports. Love watching the UFC every week. Love watching boxing now. Love watching kickboxing. I even watch jiu-jitsu. I never used to watch jiu-jitsu. Now I even watch a little bit of jiu-jitsu and wrestling. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and take everything from everything. So that's a big change for me. I never really used to tune into other combat sports. There's a lot of things that, like, say, boxers or kickboxers, jiu-jitsu guys, they're doing that isn't really implemented in MMA yet. And it's just because people haven't figured out how to cross it over, and they sort of just write it off. But man, there's so many things you can learn from other sports, even non-combat sports. But just watching the way the human body can move, it's there's a lot of things you can implement.
Anthony Smith and Michael Bisping on the Believe You Me podcast both say that they don't believe Paddy Pimblett won a single round against Jared Gordon.
Paddy Pimblett lost that fight 30-27. I don't think he won a round. I think, in the pre-show, I said, listen, Jared Gordon is way better than people are giving him credit for. And I think that he's technically the better striker. Now, how is he going to deal with the size and the power advantage of Paddy Pimblett, which I think some of his power advantage comes because he does allow himself to get so heavy in between fights that he still carries the power of a 200-pound man. So I think he was outstruck. I think he was out wrestled. I think in other than the one exchange where Jared Gordon gave up his back, where was the one spot I thought that Paddy was going to have a lot of success, because Jared does give his back up sometimes. Grant Dawson took his back 3 or 4 times, and Paddy is a fantastic back taker.
Yep.
So other than that one grappling exchange, I thought Jared Gordon outstruck him in the first 2 rounds and then slowed him down and out wrestled him in the last round. I didn't see a question. I didn't see an issue with the decision being a 30-27 for Jared Gordon. I didn't even fathom that they were going to give it to Paddy.
Same thought. When I was watching it, I said going into that Paddy was going to have a tougher fight than what he thought. He was predicting a first-round stoppage. When I spoke to him for BT Sport, he said, Mike, yo, you're going to be wrong. You're going to find out. You're going to owe Nick Pete some money. That's who I made a bet with. So he was very confident. Did not go his way at all. I thought Jared landed the heavier shots, the more significant shots. A lot of Paddy's shots that he was throwing were kind of just landing on the hands and kind of getting blocked a lot. There was nothing particularly clean that landed for Paddy. For Jared, he did find that left hook over and over and over again. And like you could hear the crowd respond when those shots landed and Paddy's head fly back. No, I don't think it was a huge robbery, although I thought Jared clearly won. I think we've seen worse decisions, but I was a little shocked, for damn sure.
Israel Adesanya's coach Eugene Behrman is confident Izzy will defeat Alex Bejeda in the rematch. He says Izzy just needs to make a few adjustments. Speaking to Submission Radio, Eugene said, "We're quietly confident. You got to understand, we were winning that fight relatively comfortably. We felt we were taking the rounds, but not comfortable enough. When you're fighting somebody like that, whose game plan appears to be, it's not a guy who builds his game plan around accumulation of damage. He's a guy that builds his game plan around mentally wearing down and then trying to land one big shot. And he's comfortable giving rounds and then not panicking, because he gives away rounds, and it's part of a bigger picture for him, setting up what he ultimately is looking for. And with a few adjustments, we can make some changes there and build on a lot of positive things that happened in that fight for us. I haven't seen the numbers on the last fight, but I'm sure they're very, very good. I think in the middleweight division, I still think that's the biggest fight. Khamzat's a rising star, but he's literally done nothing at middleweight, so he hasn't established himself. You're talking about 2 guys at the top of the food chain in terms of their status in combat sports. Khamzat's a rising star, he's a massive rising star, but he's not in the position of these 2 guys. This is the biggest fight. Khamzat still has to beat people at middleweight and work his way up to even fighting one of these guys. So unless the politics take over and the business of the sport take over, and that's essentially how we arrived at this fight that we're talking about, right? So it's still the biggest fight to make, and at the end of the day, it's not Alex's choice. It will be Alex's choice when he makes X amount of title defenses and does well for the company and all that. Then it becomes Alex's choice. But at the moment, we've got a former champion who's done so much for this company, who's defended his title so many times. He kind of gets to, if he wants a rematch, I believe that's what he should get. Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker has been canceled. The fight was scheduled for UFC 284 on February 11th. However, Paulo pulled out. Brett Okamoto posted this to his Instagram. He wrote, "No troll job. Paulo Costa and Robert Whittaker will not fight at UFC 284 in February. Costa has said publicly he's on the final fight of his deal and discussed a new contract with the UFC, but nothing's been agreed to. In any event, he will not fight in Perth. Sources say at the moment Robert Whittaker will likely move to a later date." Paulo Costa reposted it to his Twitter. He wrote, "Great fight is going down due to lack of negotiation skills. They should stop being petty." He followed up with tweeting, "I wasn't bluffing." And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post future ones. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. The first one's from Nate Mark. It says, "Rogan and Conor squashed their beef. The world can rest now." The second one's from Willy Nilly. It says, "I wouldn't really say they squashed their beef. I would say Joe gave him a compliment." And the final one says, "I can picture McGregor saying, thank you, Joe, thank you." Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured on the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. If you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen to get caught up. And make sure to go subscribe to our second channel where we post our exclusive MMA interviews.
This is Richie, aka Ruins, becoming the first player to use the revolutionary rolling technique in a live Classic Tetris World Championships event at the 2021 Southern Qualifier. Last summer, Una and I drove 10 hours to attend the tournament in Greenville, South Carolina, so we could try competing ourselves. It was the first official Classic Tetris event in 2 years due to the pandemic, and the level of competition had improved dramatically. So how did rolling do in its debut? How did we do in our attempts to compete? And who ultimately won? Well, let's rewind to the beginning. Una and I are just about to get into South Carolina for the Southeastern Qualifier. It was a bit of a rough road down. We had to completely alter our route at the last minute to try and avoid the hurricane as much as possible, but we managed to finally make it. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Eat really good food and also be a part of like the Tetris for the first time.
Yeah, the last time we went to
What?
a competition in 2019, Una didn't play NES Tetris, but now she does. So it's going to be exciting for both of us to get to put up qualifying scores tomorrow. We're going to be heading into a minor league baseball game with Chris Bidwell. It's been years since I've gone to a baseball game in person. We're going to be seeing some other people from the community. Chris Bidwell had organized the meetup here as a pre-party for people in the community arriving a day ahead of time. We found our seats next to him and his family, along with other Tetris players Storm and Norman, Dave Smith Says, Spirit Vet, Marfrem, and one of the founders of the Classic Tetris World Championships himself, Adam Cornelius. Typically, the Tetris Qualifier pre-parties were at bars, but given how people's ages in the community had skewed younger and younger, Chris Bidwell had chosen a minor league baseball game so people under 21 could actually attend. And we had a great time, even though for most of the game the action on the field wasn't as much of the focus, and instead we were talking about what we thought the Tetris Qualifier would be like, or watching the Classic Tetris Monthly Masters event on our phones, which had a bracket playing live that evening. As a special treat at the end, it was fireworks night at the stadium, and Chris Bidwell made us all laugh when the announcer counted down the fireworks 3, 2, 1, and then he yelled Tetris. It was an awesome way to break the
Eight months ago, I built this wildlife pond to try to attract and help out some of the local wildlife. In this video, I'll share the whole story of how I turned a boring patch of grass into a healthy and thriving ecosystem. The initial idea for this project started 2 springs ago when I built this small wildlife pond from some spare materials. This wasn't a traditional design, it was made more for photography, so it had steep raised edges to funnel the wildlife to the back of the pond, and since there was only one way in and one way out, this was an ideal setup to film animals visiting the water. Over the next few months, I watched just how many species this little pond was benefiting, and it was during this time that I decided I wanted to give them something even better. A larger pond that's more wildlife friendly, that doesn't only focus on water, but also beneficial habitat features and native wildflowers. So fast forward to this year where a few warm sunny weeks in March melted the snow, and I broke ground on my new wildlife pond. I started by removing all of the grass and then dug out the different levels of the pond. At its deepest, it's about 4 feet, which will help keep the water temperature more stable throughout the year. It'll also be a great place for submerged plants to grow and for frogs, tadpoles, and aquatic insects to escape predators. Once I finished digging up the pond, I immediately started setting up the pond liner. I had never installed a liner of this size and I didn't really know what I was doing, but we got it in without any punctures or major issues, so I'm very grateful for that. The pipes running to the old pond were still frozen, so we had to fill it up 1 barrel at a time, and while it filled up, I built a small wall of rocks around the deep end so the sand doesn't wash away from the edges. And once it was filled to the top, I used the leftover sand to fill in the edges and smooth out the surface around the pond. I then dug a small hole about 3.5 feet deep to build myself an in-ground observation blind. I didn't want anything too fancy, so I used some old pallets as a structure. One side of the blind would be for sitting and one side for standing, and because of the design, I was able to make a small garden on the roof of the blind. I took some chives and stone crops from the edges of my previous pond build and planted them here as a way to remember the old pond. I used some camo netting to cover the exterior of the blind, and here's what the new pond looks like so far. You can see the old one in the back is smaller and not quite as natural. Before filling in the old pond, I transferred some cattails and bulrushes into their new home. The next big thing I needed to do was to set up all the wildlife habitat. I started with tilling the area around the pond and removing as much grass as possible. This is where I'll seed the wildflower meadow. This was hands down the worst part of the entire build. I didn't mind the physical activity, but the work was just mind-numbing and never-ending. I'm sad to say that I lost 30 hours of my life to tilling and raking, and by the end of it, it wasn't even a good job. So for my own sanity, I just told myself that everything will be okay, and I slapped a "nature will figure it out" sticker on this part of the pond. But on a brighter note, some of the first migrants were starting to show up, which gave me extra motivation to finish setting up the rest of the wildlife habitat. I added some perches, brush piles, nest boxes, and dead standing logs for birds and insects to use. I even built this small floating structure with a bunch of willow cuttings in it to help absorb nutrients and clean the water. It's not the nicest, but it's only temporary until the other plants around the pond establish. The only thing left to do now at the pond was what I was most excited about, seeding the wildflower meadow. I spread 24 species of native wildflowers in the area around the pond, including some species of sunflowers, to try to attract more seed-eating birds. But before the seeds could germinate, we got hit with a massive rain and hailstorm. I didn't know it at the time, but this storm flooded the area, and a lot of the seeds I put in floated and gathered into low spots around the pond. This meant that the seeds would grow in clusters instead of evenly spaced out, but luckily, nature doesn't waste an inch, and as the warm spring weather moved in, I saw that some of the bare spots in the meadow were filling in naturally with other local plant species. It was around this time when I first noticed how the different pieces of this ecosystem were slowly starting to come together. Diving beetles, back swimmers, and pond skimmers were the first to arrive. Eastern phoebes would use the perches I set up to pick off insects. Tree swallows were checking out nest boxes. Brown thrashers were taking cover in brush piles, and of course, birds were coming down for the first time to drink and bathe at the pond. At the little roof garden, the chives I transplanted were one of the first plants to flower. Early spring flowers are an incredibly important food source for insects, and there were a handful of native insect species feeding on the pollen, which ultimately attracted one of the fiercest predators at the pond, jumping spiders. Even if you don't like spiders, jumping spiders are very fun to watch, especially when they're hunting. To see just how fast they are, here's a clip of one hunting in regular speed. You can barely even see it. I couldn't even focus before it took down this fly, so in order to appreciate their speed, let's slow down the footage a little bit. Here's the same jumping spider on a different hunt. It uses its large eyes to detect any potential prey and slowly creeps up on it, waiting for that perfect moment to attack and deliver the final paralyzing bite. I find this so interesting to see in slow motion, but the jumping spiders weren't the only ones having a nice meal around the pond. The local tree swallows were also enjoying the abundance of insects, so much so that after inspecting many other nest boxes, this pair had chosen one of the nest boxes I set up right behind the pond. The female would collect grasses and roots to shape the cup, while the male would stand guard and occasionally collect feathers to line the nest with. But after days of hard work, before they could even lay their first egg, their nest was raided by a red squirrel. At this time of the year, many birds' nests are raided by squirrels, skunks, raccoons, and even other birds. Sadly, the tree swallow pair didn't return to the nest, and although it was disappointing to see the first nesting birds of the pond scared off, the positive is that predation is an important part of a healthy ecosystem. And the more time I spent around the pond, the more this ecosystem seemed to become the healthy one that I had envisioned. There were a handful of frogs that had moved in and started breeding, eastern cottontails were foraging on the plants, birds were singing, hummingbirds were zipping around, and I even got my first videos of a secretive species, the American woodcock. With how excited I was for the success we've had so far, I really didn't think it could get any better. But the summer had arrived and it was ready to prove me wrong. The summertime is when all my hard work paid off. The warm weather mixed with some rainfalls gave the plants exactly what they needed to take over. Most of the empty spaces on the ground started to fill up with a variety of plants, and we started to get our first pops of color in the meadow. One of the busiest plants early on was a species called lamb's quarter. Much of them were covered with colonies of ants that were farming colonies of aphids. The ants protect the aphids from predators and carry them in their mouth to the juiciest parts of the plant. In exchange, the aphids, which are these small sap-sucking insects, will produce a sweet waste product called honeydew. And the ants will feed on this high-energy substance, giving them a reliable food source throughout the seasons. For the unfortunate aphids without any ant protectors, the majority of them got picked off by ladybugs, both the adults and the larvae. Ladybugs did a great job at managing this pest because midway into the summer, I couldn't find any aphids around the pond. Around this time, I had noticed that the vegetation around the pond was getting very high. Typically, birds don't feel safe using the pond if it's overgrown, so I decided to mow a section behind the pond to open it up, as well as a small footpath around the area. I also did a 50% water change to the pond to try to reduce some of the algae that had built up. I then added a new feature to the area by building a dust bath. These were super easy. I just covered a small area with sand and made sure they were out in the open so they could absorb heat from the sun. And within the day, the first birds were starting to use them. Dust bathing is an important step for birds to maintain good feather quality, and the sand can help with minimizing lice or feather mites. While I was building this, I saw a male tree swallow standing guard close to another nest box that I set up. And after inspecting, I realized it was the same pair that had their nest ripped up by the red squirrel. But this time, they had a lot more success. By the time I found them, the female was already sitting on 5 eggs. It didn't take long before the young ones hatched, and over a 2-week period they grew rapidly and eventually built up enough energy to fledge the nest. This was our first successful nest at the pond, but during this time, to my surprise anyways, we also had our second. These eastern bluebirds were so secretive that I hadn't even seen them nesting at the pond until a couple of days before the young fledged. Luckily, there was plenty of food for all of the young birds around. The wildflowers were in full swing and attracting an abundance of insects to the pond. The milkweed plants in particular were home to red milkweed beetles, swamp milkweed leaf beetles, monarch butterfly caterpillars, and some of our jumping spider friends. The black-eyed Susans attracted a variety of moths, flies, and predators like this goldenrod crab spider. Sunflowers were getting devoured by small flocks of goldfinches. Even the plants in the pond were thriving. The cattails and bulrushes exploded, and I'd often find dragonflies emerging from their exoskeletons on the leaves. The roots also continued to spread and absorb nutrients, and the water became so clear that I was able to see all the way to the bottom for the first time. One thing that surprised me when I looked through the water was the lack of mosquito larvae. It seems like the predators have really managed the population well. When mosquito eggs hatch, they have to attempt to survive an onslaught of predators in the water like diving beetles, green frog tadpoles, and dragonfly nymphs. If they're lucky enough to emerge as adults, they then face attacks from amphibians, spiders, birds, bats, and predatory insects like damselflies and dragonflies. One dragonfly can eat up to 100 mosquitoes in a day, and that's why I don't really mind having mosquitoes around. They help feed a lot of the different species, and by the time the fall rolled around, their populations were already starting to decline. The fall was probably the hardest time for me to keep up with what was going on around the pond. I spent about 2 months out of the province for work, and when I was in the area, a lot of time went towards another big project, which I won't talk about here, but I'm very excited to finally share it with you in my next video. So after coming to the pond after my time away, I quickly realized that something had wreaked havoc at the pond. The floating structure for the willows was all ripped up, the cattails were trampled, and I noticed the frogs and toads were very skittish. Throughout the season, they had gotten used to me walking around the pond, and they were never really startled, but now with any movement, they would just jump into the water and head for the deep end. My best guess is they were being hunted by raccoons. I've seen some frogs sitting under and on top of the floating structure in the past. A raccoon likely ripped it up while trying to catch one of these frogs. I also noticed a lot of the smaller frogs and smaller toads were missing from the pond, which led me to believe that another reason they might be skittish is snakes. There had been a few hanging around throughout the season, and I eventually caught one in the act. Like I mentioned earlier, predation is a healthy part of the pond, and seeing these snakes hunting just goes to show how the ecosystem has found its balance. Eventually, I started to do some cleanup, and I retired the floating structure since the plants around the pond were well established. I also decided to keep the trampled cattails in the water to provide some extra cover for the frogs and tadpoles. While I was cleaning up, I kept seeing this kitten hanging around. Now, I've seen outdoor and feral cats around here before, but since we have a fierce and menacing black wolf that patrols the property, they rarely hang around. But this one showed up a few times and would just watch me as I walked around. It seemed counterproductive to attract wildlife to the pond while also having a hungry feral cat nearby. I really wasn't sure what to do about it, but funny enough, my girlfriend and I had been talking about adopting a cat, so the fact that this one showed up shortly after, malnourished and in some need of help, it was hard to ignore. So I found a can of tuna and water laying around and decided to see if we can habituate this kitten and eventually bring her home. She was very skittish, so I placed the plate near the gate and walked away, and before I knew it, her nose led her right to the food. Each time I gave her a little tuna and slowly moved the plate closer to me. She was cautious, but the second she got a whiff of the tuna, Her cautiousness would go right out the window. When she got close, I could see just how little fat was on her. It's hard to see in the video because of her fluff, but you can see her hip bones were sticking out, so she likely had a rough few months. Over the next week, we were in a routine where we would meet up for breakfast and supper, and I bought her some actual cat food and gravy, which it sounds like she really appreciated. Between her feeding times, I was back at the pond doing some important tasks for the fall. The first was to mow and trim the wildflower meadow around the pond, which is important to do at least once a year. This will help cut back any trees that are growing in the open space that could eventually overtake all the wildflowers. Some plants produce so many seeds that they couldn't even stand upright, so I decided to cut half now, and I'll keep half uncut so they can provide seeds to wildlife above the snow in the wintertime. I also spent some time inside of the blind filming the birds that were migrating through. This is where having the standing portion of the blind was really helpful. The birds would land all over the surrounding habitat of the pond, not just at the water, so by standing up I got a great 360-degree view of the area, which made it a lot easier to follow and track the birds. And since I still never got around to putting in a roof, I could also watch the geese and raptors as they were migrating through. The migrating songbirds would often arrive at the pond in these mixed flocks. The size of the group would change day by day, but it was always the same 6 species. From the seed eaters, there were white-crowned sparrows, song sparrows, and chipping sparrows, and from the insectivores, there were eastern phoebes, eastern bluebirds, and yellow-rumped warblers. The sparrows would feed on the seeds from the plants I left standing, as well as the plants I cut down on the ground. And while they were busy foraging, the insectivores would perch close by looking for any insects to get flushed. Bird-wise, this was the busiest the pond had been all year, and since they were so focused on getting enough energy for their migration, this was one of the most entertaining times at the pond. While I was standing in the blind, I also noticed that something had been digging a small hole under the pallets. It didn't take me very long to figure out who the culprit was. There was about 4 chipmunks living around the pond, and they really put a dent in the amount of seeds on the ground. After about a week, most of the migrating songbirds had moved on, and things had really started to quiet down around the pond. All the while, I had still been feeding the kitten every morning and every evening. She was still jumpy, but I could tell she was getting more and more comfortable with me. So I finally decided I'd try to pet her and see how she reacts, and she didn't even flinch. She just seemed so happy to get some attention. She'd even come on her own looking for some head scratches. I had to leave again for work for 5 weeks, but my girlfriend would send me updates about the cat, and when I got back, the cat was looking much healthier, and I'm proud to say we successfully brought her home, and she's now acclimating to the house 1 room at a time. With winter settling in and the pond now frozen over, this was the first time I truly reflected about the whole season. It was incredibly rewarding to think about all the species I was able to attract and help throughout the past 8 months. Whether it was an animal just stopping by for a quick drink, or another one completing its entire life cycle at the pond, it just goes to show how a step towards native habitats, whether big or small, can quickly have a positive impact on the local wildlife.
A year ago today, I built this little chunk of rainforest. This is much more than a bedside tank. It has evolved into a dense ecosystem teeming with life. It is in this video where you can see both the brutality and beauty of Mother Nature. Today, I will unveil to you the full history of the cannibal jungle in my bedroom. The tank began as a summer project. I built a custom background for the tank using some ghost wood, spray foam, and silicone. Nothing major. The tank wouldn't be the same without it. I built up some lava rock in the foreground. This was to create the water area. The back of the tank was then filled with some leca and substrate. From here, I planted the tank and it was complete. I didn't realize I had created the groundwork for an ecosystem. At the time, the only animals were these tiny garden snails that hitched along one of the plants. As time went by, the plants started to grow in and moss began to appear. The progression of the tank was slow, but clearly evident. Once mold appeared, I introduced various species of springtails into the tank. They thrived in the humid environment. I felt the tank was ready for a more complex life, so I got some shrimp and Malaysian trumpet snails. The shrimp were shy but would always come out during feeding time. As for the snails, they settled in right away. Within just a few days, I found baby snails scattered throughout. To make the shrimp feel more at home, I added in some red root floater. These plants acted as cover and made the shrimp feel secure. After that, it didn't take long for the shrimp to get busy. Here, you can see a very pregnant shrimp. She carries the eggs under her abdomen, and those tiny black dots are actually eyes. There was a population boom, and you can clearly see that in the time lapse. About a month down the road, everything was still going smoothly, so I was ready to add in an apex predator, the vampire crab. Their eyes glow a menacing yellow, which is how they get their name. I started with only 6 of them. When I added them to the tank, little did I know of the army they would become. I gave them each a mealworm to feed upon. This crab eats his food like a cup of takeout. I always thought it was funny. These crabs are semi-terrestrial, meaning they need both a land and water area to survive. On land, they breathe using a thin layer of water on their shell. If you look closely, you can see the water moving around their exoskeleton. This one is even blowing bubbles. The crabs often venture to the water in search of a meal. They tried to hunt the shrimp, but aren't very successful. 2 months later, the tank was still thriving. The plants finally started to fill in the space, and some of them developed crazy colors. One day, I was baffled when I found baby crabs wandering around the tank. They weren't much bigger than a sesame seed. The babies had very effective camouflage as they blended right into their surroundings. Here, you can see them eating some algae. The babies were an awesome surprise, though I became concerned. I feared the crabs would overpopulate and there would be way too many of them. I needed a solution. I needed a new predator. That is where the mourning gecko comes in. I bought 3 adult females and I thought they would be the perfect tank mate. The geckos immediately took up residence in the canopy. The adult crabs were too big for them to hunt, but the babies, well, the babies could become an unfortunate meal. Now, it wasn't only geckos that were hunting the baby crabs. The crabs hunted the crabs. Here, you can see a baby crab eating his own brother. They were cannibals. It showed how brutal nature can be. As more time passed, the forest floor became much more than just a pile of dead leaves. It became a refuge. There were still these tiny snails who would wander in search of food. More than just microfauna lived here. It was home to the baby crabs. They rarely ventured out to explore or to become someone else's meal. As the crabs grew, they no longer needed the security of the forest floor. They could climb into the canopy in search of food. At this stage, they were too big to become a meal for one of the geckos. I'd even see them peacefully sitting side by side. In the canopy, the crabs found refuge in the bromeliads. These plants hold mini pools of water in their leaves, which turned out to be a perfect hiding spot. I'd often find them hiding in these pockets. If I ever got too close, they would quickly dive deeper into the plant. The geckos also call the bromeliads home. I'd find them tucked in between their leaves and they'd find shelter here when it rains. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the tank has rain. The tank has these tropical storms 5 times a day. The heavy rain brings out the geckos and you can even hear them talking to each other. That clicking noise is actually the geckos communicating. They are very social animals that like to be housed in groups. Well, their group is about to get bigger because they had laid piles and piles of eggs. This may come as a surprise because if you recall, all the geckos I bought were female. Then how do they reproduce? Well, this isn't just any ordinary gecko. This type of gecko can make clones. All you need is one gecko to start an entire population. As the days went by, I began to find baby geckos all over the tank. They were extremely quick and difficult to film. Most of the time, I would find them resting among the bromeliads or high up in the canopy. This little guy was drinking off one of the leaves. Funny little guys for sure. And now, this brings us to present day. Like my hair, the tank looks nothing like it did a year ago and has become overgrown. The diversity in leaf shape, size, and color is extremely variable. The ecosystem has finally found balance where no animal outcompetes the other. Many of the crabs have reached adulthood. Here, you can see a baby, juvenile, and adult crab in the palm of my hand. The smallest crab doesn't have any of his adult coloration yet. Right now, he's cleaning his eyes with his claws. They are like mini windshield wipers because the crabs don't have any eyelids. They have to manually keep their eyes clean. You can see how the juvenile crab has developed some color on his eyes, and they're now a deep orange. I decided to give him a little treat, and this is a bloodworm. He took it right out of my tongs and began to eat it. His mouth was like a little meat grinder, and he ate the entire thing. And here is an adult crab. He is clearly the biggest and most colorful of the three. His massive claws were disproportionate to his tiny frame. I tried feeding him a cricket, but he pushed that away. I then tried feeding him a bloodworm, and of course he didn't hesitate to eat that. He ate the whole thing in under a minute. The geckos were thriving, and now I had well over 30. I didn't feel comfortable leaving them in the big tank, so I built them their own setup. I'll be sure to make a video on them in the future. The tank as a whole is definitely looking at its best. Beauty lies in its constant evolution and change. Every day, there is new growth, a new plant, or even a new generation. This tank is not the only project I've been working on. Right now, I'm building a 100-gallon polydarium, a saltwater ecosystem, and I'm keeping a colony of wasps. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. Now, here's a full playlist of all the videos I have on this tank. Feel free to check that out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
This right here is what I like to call an ecosystem aquarium. I call it that because all I do to it is trim the plants every now and again and top up the water level. It hasn't had a water change in nearly 10 months now. The substrate system and the plants are doing all the cleaning for the water, and the poop from the fish is providing nutrients to the plants. It's like a really good circle, hence why I call it an ecosystem tank. And this right here is a bowl. It's about 7 gallons, I mean roughly, because it's like flat top and bottom, and I just nearly broke it with my ring. Whoops, and I've got fingerprints all over it. Oh. Anyway, I want to see if I can create that back there in this bowl. Should be able to do it, theoretically, but sometimes things don't always work out on a smaller scale. It's going to be a challenge, but one I'm up for. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in some gravel in the base there. This is the gravel I've got. It's from my driveway. But don't worry, it's not near like anywhere cars are parked, so there's no nasties on it. Now the reason we want to put this layer in there, because that is going to be the zone that harbours all the beneficial bacteria that will keep the inhabitants of the bowl alive. Now we're not going for fish in this one, well, not to start with anyway, that's for sure. Maybe at a later date. I know some of you frown upon it, but you know, I've found no problem keeping fish in bowls at all, providing they're the right size. You know, you don't want anything too big. Do not put goldfish in bowls, basically. So yeah, first of all, gravel in there, a good couple of inches, and it'll also give us a good base to start putting in some hardscape. There we go, nice little beneficial bacteria zone. Next up, plant nutrients. Now I'm putting aqua soil in my bags. I've been doing this recently and it's worked out a treat. Mesh bags. Yeah, here we go, look, little mesh bags. You can see through them, and the roots go into them absolutely fine as well, but it locks all the nutrients down underneath the decorative layer on the top. And also it means we can reuse them at a later date if we want to as well, so really good. I'll leave a little link to these in the description because many of you are going to ask, because it is really good, it works so well. So I'm currently using this little area as the production, but behind it is my African river tank. Now this whole thing was set up using that method that I just showed you. I had like gravel down first, actually the gravel was in bags as well. I didn't feel the need to on this one, and then on top of that I had loads of aqua soil in bags and then capped it all off with the sand, and I mean I think the results speak for themselves there. So it's a really good method that's working really well. You don't have to put the aqua soil in the bags, but I find that if you do, it just means you can reuse them. I like to reuse this stuff as much as possible.
You can make a
it's expensive at the end of the day, so why not? If you can, do it. You don't have to, you know, lock everything down in bags though. So for this project I'm using the Tropica aqua soil. I've got some fresh stuff, but look here, recycled from previous scapes. I've got this one here which is all wet, so I'm just going to suck out all that water. I don't want that dripping everywhere to start with. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but it's just not nice looking. Yeah, this is recycled gravel and stuff from another setup as well. So like I say, I like to try and reuse everything where I can, and then if I really can't, I'll dispose of it and start again, or I tend to put it all in like compost heap, that sort of thing, because none of it's bad for the environment, so that's what I like to do. Right, so a couple of things. First of all, the mesh bags are completely made of plastic, so there's no metal on it at all that can rust or anything like that. And second of all, you must be wondering how I'm lighting this. So at the moment, I'm using my studio light that's coming down onto it, but it's going to be over in this corner here where I'm using the Pled 510. It's a light that I use on a ton of my different tanks. You see, I've got it over there on that one as well. That's a low-tech Nature Aquarium style one, and then I've got one here as well on the Neon Tetra Jungle, which is looking so good. See, I know that light's going to be more than adequate. It's going to work so well. Next up, we want to now cap the top of all of this with the decorative sand layer. This is the layer that you're actually going to see when you look in the tank, so pick whatever color you want. Just don't make it bright pink or neon green, for goodness sake. There we go, we've got a fantastic base to start from there. Look at that. So there's the angle. We do the angle so we can get some sort of perspective in the bowl. If everything's flat, you tend to lose the stuff in the background. So what I've done here is just provide that stage, if you like, and on top of this now, I can put my hardscape and then build around that. No idea what yet though. But I have got lots to choose from. I want to go for some angular wood, but we don't want to take up too much space either, because the point of this one is that we have loads of space for planting. So something simple. Here is just provide that stage, if you like.
Enough to tell that you fucking Tori in the love, whatever. So apparently that that dude is supposed to come to say that on the stand, except nobody can find this nigga. Apparently this nigga's like in Qatar, cooling. You feel me? Like, you know what I mean? This nigga chasing down, you know what I mean? Nigga chasing down Messi. Let's see, what's his name? Meg. Then we get to find out, and this is like the interesting thing about this whole case. This ain't just the case, right? The reason why this case is so riveting, not only because there's 2 stars involved, there's a lot of other people and a lot of different hands in the pot. The DA, they're gonna look embarrassed if they lose to Tory, okay? Tory, if his career is done, he's getting deported. No, if he gets found guilty, he's getting deported, career done, right? Meg, her reputation's on the line. She don't want to be seen as a liar. You get what I mean? But there's other things. For example, like Rock Nation seems to be having well, first of all, Rock Nation comes in this case in very different ways. We've seen Rock Nation CEO, what's her name? Desiree Perez, the lady who, you know, like told on the cartel back in the day. She shows up when Meg's on the stand. What I'm trying to say is that they have significant interest beyond, oh, Meg is signed to us in a management deal. Keep in mind, the person that everybody's now calling Meg Thee Stallion's attorney, keep in mind, Meg don't got no fucking charges, right? So Meg is a victim. But Meg's attorney is the same attorney that basically Jay-Z assigns to everybody who he's trying to help. That's Alex Spiro. It's the same guy who helped Bobby Shmurda get off his case. And Jay-Z, you know, kind of has used him for a lot of the justice reform stuff. So magically, that's now Meg's lawyer. And ironically, and this is what I'm saying, everybody got their hand in the pot and everybody has their interest, because you can't tell me that Rock Nation ain't trying to flip. Like, they see what's going on. They're like it's clear as day. They're like, yo, if this continues, Tory about to beat this case. We gotta fuck this shit up a little bit. What the fuck going on, right? So anyway, Alex Spiro hits up the Shade Room. Like, yo, this is how you know Rock Nation on some bullshit. If a nigga go missing, the first person you hit up is the Shade Room to ask where the nigga at, that they could post a picture. Yo, post a picture of this nigga, see if you know where he at. Now what the fuck? Now granted, the family of the dude ain't saying he missing. We see the nigga on the gram cooling in Qatar. That nigga was speeding everybody, chilling. Feel me? But according to how Rock Nation is putting it, they acting like, you know, they're almost kind of trying to make it look like, yo, maybe Tory got this nigga clapped. Maybe Tory's scaring this nigga. He ain't coming to court. You get what I mean? If you ask me, maybe the dude don't want to testify because his testimony would pretty much be the most damning thing, right? if he says that Tory told him verbatim, I shot Meg. That's a confession. And granted, you remember how Kelsey backed off a lot of shit, right? Kelsey backed off a lot of shit that she said, right? Even prior to the prosecutor back in September. Maybe this nigga just didn't want to come in court, and now, you know, be forced to do the prosecutor's bidding because Meg didn't remember half of the shit. Kelsey said she lied about some shit. Now they need one person to affirmatively say, Tory told me he did it. And this nigga right now, he'd rather be in the fucking desert in the Middle East, my nigga. He do not want to be at trial, okay? So it's just hilarious that Rock Nation's lawyer is motherfucking hitting up the Shade Room, talking about, oh yeah, we can't find witnesses. Oh yeah, this is happening here. Like, the mere fact that Rock Nation's lawyer keep hitting up the Shade Room to put out these statements that is kind of trying to control the narrative a bit, you can see what it is. You know what I mean? Cool. Let me see. What y'all talking about? Cause somebody said Dame Dash warned y'all about this nigga Jay-Z. I don't think Jay-Z's pulling the shots. Nigga, if anything, I think it's Desiree Perez pulling the shots. Bro, it's just in Rock Nation's best interest since day one. And if we go with some of these claims that are unsubstantiated, let me walk you through them. They said when Meg gets shot, one of the first few people she called is some people from her team, and her team, I'm guessing, is like the management side, which is Rock Nation. Basically tells them that some shit happened, and basically this is alleged. Basically, those people said, "Yo, oh, we finna run with this." Okay, oh yeah, great. Okay, great. No, we gonna run with this. Like, basically saying, this is a perfect situation. Like, we're glad you're okay, but this is a perfect situation to paint you out as a victim. We're gonna run with this. We'll crush his career. We'll lift you up. We'll make everybody look at you like how, you know, justifiably, people were looking at Rihanna back in the day. And to keep it real, if you think about how Meg has played this whole thing, she's been tight. Niggas ain't giving her the Rihanna treatment. It's like, yo, y'all don't care about me. I don't care about black women. I got shot. You know what I mean? Like, it's all that type of stuff. So really, you can tell she seems to be aiming or seeking more sympathy than she does. Anyway, there's a bunch of other stuff, and there's some tweets coming in too. So, you know, we're going to kind of oscillate from a few pages ago. This is the bodyguard. It says LA County District Attorney's looking for Meg Thee Stallion's former bodyguard after a court. Keep in mind, this nigga not testifying for Tory. He's testifying for Meg, right? So he's testifying, or not for Meg, but for the prosecutor. Now we hear, right? TSR exclusive. This is basically Rock Nation just DMing them, like, yo, put this in. After the Shade Room exclusive reported that Justin Edison failed to make his court appearance to testify, the Los Angeles County District Attorney trying to locate him. According to TMZ, Meg bodyguard remains off the grid after skipping blah blah blah. They visited his home, but that nigga is in Qatar. Okay, that nigga's cooling, man. Remember what's the name was talking about jury 39? Here it goes. Judge Herford says juror is number 39. I didn't watch any juror selection, but this is a full report description of 39. A woman's clothing seamstress who said she's familiar with at least one part of the case through Instagram, but isn't generally on Instagram. Says she can be fair. What the fuck is that? Next up, there's an issue with the juror that's been discussed in private. I've seen a lot of tweets about a juror issue. All I can say, I don't know if that's the same issue the judge is addressing because we're giving her details. But the juror, a younger, light-skinned black woman with braided hair and a style of dress that included pink cheetah print pants. What? The juror? Oh, this juror's a hot girl right here. Bitch wearing a thong and some cheetah print pants. Like, come on, man. She might as well just play Bust It off her cell phone and start twerking on the fucking. Start twerking in the jury pool, man. Get out of here, man. Get that motherfucker out of here, man. Get that motherfucker out of here, man. That's what them hotties, man. All they know how to do is fucking drink liquor, dance, and be a hoe. What the fuck is y'all niggas talking about? Get Shorty off the jury pool. Get her out of here. You feel me? Come on, man. Get her the fuck out of here. She the friend Pat. Like, man, where you thought she was going, man? This is a trial. What you think you're going to the club? Get this bitch on out of here, man. To the streets she should return, bro. Fuck that. Man. Listen, man. I just want a fair trial for everybody. All right, anyway, let me see what's popping in the streets. Tell me why Whack 100 mad at me over Gunna Tell. I'm like, I ain't tell Gunna Tell. Like that. We're going to discuss that a little bit, too. You know, Whack, you know, he's not mad at me. But he's like your act. People like you are helping push the narrative of moving the goalposts because Gunna does it. That's what he said. We're going to get into it. Okay, now they come up with some new shit. I ain't gonna lie, man. Rock Nation, yo, you know the prosecutors in shambles. They're trying to come up with everything to try to get like a mistrial or some shit of the sort now. You feel me? Because all their aces in the hole hasn't paid off for them, right? Now they're saying that we caught Tory with a juror in an elevator. Nigga, really? Like, it's like they're trying to throw everything in the mix because it's like they know they're not winning. You get what I mean? This song. Let me go to shit. How y'all doing on YouTube, man? All right, we got this bitch up here now. Okay. So I think this is a nigga named EJ right here. Meg's former stylist, Eric Culverson. How this nigga? Let me see, what's his Instagram? Stylist? Okay. Meg Thee Stallion's former stylist wearing a bright pink suit jacket. He's testifying now. He was with Megan Kelsey and Tory at Kylie Jenner's party prior to the shooting. This testimony is going to be interesting. I'm wondering if he gonna really describe how Megan is. Okay. So we just kind of waiting on some more updates. Apparently Meg don't fuck with him neither. I'm gonna be honest. Like, you know, there's a viral clip, and I remember when Joe said it, because I did Joe Budden's podcast recently, and he said it, I'm sitting right next to him. But I didn't know if he was gonna edit that out, because I think Joe has toned it down a lot. Like, Joe's not, like, Joe back on Everyday Struggle was just giving it up. But now, Joe is a lot more richer. He's a lot more happier. And I don't think he really wanted to, like, you know, I'm not saying he's just staying on the safe side, but I think he reins it in rather than just, like, lets loose all the time, right? Anyway, he said what he said about Meg. And from my understanding, I actually played the clip. He essentially said that, like, Meg fucked over, like, a bunch of people in the industry, and people have certain heroes.
And dislike the girl. So let me be clear to the audience, that has nothing to do with this case or Tory Lanez. For me, personally, I've seen this woman do horrible things to some really great people that I have long-standing relationships with in this industry. So I'm biased. Like, you can't just treat my friends and people I've with and people I've seen in this game for 15 years a certain way. That aside, I stand in my dislike for the girl. So let me be clear to the audience, that has nothing to do with this case or Tory Lanez. For me personally, I've seen this woman do horrible things to some really great people that I have.
Nani, thank you for the 5 gifted. Appreciate you.
So I'm biased. Like, you can't just treat my friends and people I've with and people I've seen in this game for 15 years a certain way. That aside, I'm talking about her and what she's chosen to do professionally. I want to be clear, I don't know her as a person. She could be amazing, but there's a lot to deal with when you sign, and a lot happens fast. I stand in my dislike.
All right, okay. All right. I'll give my opinion on this. I don't know Meg personally. I won't even sit here and cap like I've heard that she just fucks people over. I've never heard. I did hear that she's doing what every other artist does in the sense of like what's going on with her in 1501. Bruh, anytime you take a chance on an artist, they feel like they owe you the world. As soon as they pop off, yeah, okay, you could eat off one project or whatever. Like 2 projects in, they thinking they made themselves. They're like, yo, you don't even do nothing. Like, I did all this on my own, so fuck you. Let me get out of this deal, right? And exactly, that's what she's trying to do. Like, she's just trying to go sign to Roc Nation fully. She's Bearswide now. She's trying to sign to them fully. But I can't say that that's a sign of a bad person. All artists do that. So I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep it real, no matter what. I haven't personally heard it. Now, granted, some of these other people who seem slighted by her, I don't know them. So maybe that's what Joe is talking about. So I don't really have anything to say, whether positive or against that for her. But yeah, if you speak on Meg though, unfortunately people just think that you're just like as a man you're just hating. And for me, the only thing I've ever heard about her is that, listen, they say Meg gets around it, okay? And I won't put what context that's in. That's number one. And also, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I've heard some people say liar, but like I think most of the liar claims kind of comes from this is the center of it, because who else she lied to? Now, also the drinking stuff, which by the way, I seen someone type in the chat, like apparently she was telling like Nicki Minaj to go get an abortion or something like that. Listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite and be like, damn, she's drinking, so she's a horrible person, right? But I do believe that a lot of things has happened while she's intoxicated around other people that has allowed them to view her differently, right? Like, from what my understanding of that night was, Meg and Kylie had a very positive, outlook on Meg going into that party. Something happened at the party, which I hear, something happened, and it was how Meg was acting when she was drunk. That got Kylie would just be like, yo, I'm good off like being friends with this particular individual. That's the word. We'll see. Anyway, let me go to Lawrence for work and see what's really back. That's an hour ago. I'm gonna try to play the latest 3 hours ago.
Of week 2 of the Tory Lanez trial. The one independent witness, the homeowner who was at the house right in front of this shooting, will testify this afternoon. The defense is calling him as a witness. The prosecution didn't call him. That's a shame. Number 2, the judge allowed rap lyrics into evidence. That's a huge shame. Let me tell you, not just did they let the rap lyrics come in, the rapper is not even here. They're using a rap song allegedly done by Kelsey. Kelsey is not here to testify about the lyrics. Instead, the judge allowed an investigator to say, I heard the song, this is what it says, here's evidence for this case. Unbelievable. The only thing more shameful was the prosecution's presentation.
Y'all rock with my boy. Yo, I wonder if he's like a really dope lawyer. I wonder how would he do if he had to like win some of these cases. He always gives sometimes I slightly disagree with him, but he always brings up an interesting point, and that's why I like watching his breakdowns too. Very interesting point, different angle. I like it.
of the rap lyrics using one of their investigators. Let me show you how that went down. Let me tell you what this investigator did on the stand today. And somebody call the governor, because first off, the rap lyrics should never have been used, and this investigator should, I mean, let me tell you, listen to this. It's absurd. So then the prosecutor says, hey, in this song, doesn't it say, isn't this Kelsey rapping that, oh, I didn't shoot you should clear my name? And the investigator's like, yes. Okay, defense goes up. Hey, in this song, doesn't Kelsey also rap about Meg is lying to the BA and Meg is lying to her manager, and that her manager, somebody named Dez, is making threats on Kelsey? And the investigator's like, no, I don't know. Can you show me playing dumb? And the guy's like, wait, didn't you come here to testify about what this song says, but you can't answer any of my questions on the stuff that doesn't fit your narrative, basically? So the prosecutor comes back on and says, hey, wait, but all that stuff about lying, there's only one mention of lying with the DA, isn't there? And so this investigator is like, yeah, there's only one. Okay, now the defense goes on. Hey, wait, I just asked you, can you tell me about all the other mentions of lying? You said you don't know, you have to review the whole song, but when the prosecutor came up and asked you to confirm there's just one, you just jumped out of your seat and were like, yes. How does all your memory come back about the song when the...
Damn. That's what I told you. Prosecutor just realized they feel Tory played dirty. So you know what they doing now? Fuck that. They're about to play dirty too. So what happened is, like, okay, so, and I agree with this guy wholeheartedly. Now playing Kelsey's song, Kelsey not there to tell you what she really meant when she wrote the song. And then you got an investigator who seems trained by the prosecutor. So the motherfucker really don't even know the song that much. They only know, as you can tell, they're prepared for certain questions. So the prosecutor says, how many times is there a threat in the song? They know the exact numbers to say, but in cross, look like a fucking idiot because you really didn't go into this saying that, oh, I'm gonna have information for the defense or the prosecutor. You're basically like a puppet for the prosecutor.
Prosecutor asking questions, you know nothing when I ask you. A very, very fair point from the defense team. Look, we'll see what the eyewitness has to say, but like I said, somebody call the governor. Using rap lyrics of the defendant, where the defendant can actually defend himself against the lyrics, is one thing. Using the rap lyrics of another rapper where that rapper is actually in court and you can ask him questions about what the song is after the prosecution uses it is another thing. Using rap lyrics about a song that we don't even know who wrote it, who's singing it, some investigator says they found it on the internet, is a whole other thing. And then when that investigator decides to have selective memory, just like Meg and Kelsey, whenever the defense asks them a question about a song that they were their sole job, the only reason they're here is to listen to that song, come to court and testify it, but you don't remember a single line about, oh, I'm lying, about, oh, managers are threatening me, about, oh, you don't remember any of the stuff. That's a neutral investigation. That's what's going on, California. Get out. Huge updates in the morning session of week.
There we go. All right, man. So we see what's going on. The prosecutor's in shambles. The prosecutor's like, all right, Tory, if you gonna cheat, we gonna cheat. That's what they basically say. Tory, if you gonna cheat and you gonna try to pull a fast one on us, Kelsey can't remember shit when she get up there, even though she told us damn near 2 months ago. She gave us a whole breakdown, nigga. If she can't remember, we gonna get this child fixed too. So it's not interesting.
All right, subscriber only update. Check this out. One. Say what's up to everybody. All right, real quick. All right, we're gonna do another subscriber update, but real quick, guilty or not guilty?
He's not guilty. He's not guilty. No. What are we talking about? Not guilty.
I got it right.
Chat, I'm gonna be honest with you too. This case is, you know, it's heating up and it's interesting. I'm walking through the airport today. And a lot of people stop with this at 30. The first thing everybody says, they're talking about this case. And I'm gonna be honest with you, and maybe I have like, you know, selection bias, because if you know Ak and you're gonna come up to Ak and you're gonna talk to him about the case, maybe you're just kind of like mostly gonna side with Tory. But a lot of people, and I'm gonna say male or female, were just kind of like, yeah, this is some bullshit. Like, he gonna beat this case. So I think that public opinion, which I know Meg right now, it is boiling. It is killing her. You know, every time she popped up on social media, somebody else, she cared about controlling the public narrative. She never wanted to seem like she was wrong. She never wanted to seem like Tori didn't do it. She never wanted to seem like she wasn't, the victim in the capacity that she claimed she was. And I think that public perception right now is kind of like, nah, this is a bullshit. Anyway.
All right, so look. All right, we gotta get it. And that, my friends, is giving reasonable doubt. If reasonable doubt was a conversation, an Instagram post, a video depiction, that's what reasonable doubt looks like. All right, subscriber. So we also had a cop testify in the morning session, and basically the defense, this is the prosecutor going back and redoing their whole case because they didn't expect Kelsey to go on the stand and say, oh, I was lying when I said Tori shot her, Tori didn't shoot her. So now that she said that, the prosecutor's going back and just recalling witnesses and trying to introduce more text messages and more evidence at the last minute because they have to scramble to kind of deal with Kelsey changing her story. And one of the witnesses today that they brought back was the officer who arrested Kelsey, put the cuffs on her when they were taken out of the car. And the prosecutor asked her, hey, what was Kelsey's demeanor like? Oh, she was very distraught. She was crying. Hey, did Kelsey say anything to Meg? Yeah, she checked on Meg. Meg, are you okay? And then the cross-examiner went on, the defense attorney went and said, hey, well, what was Tori's demeanor like? I don't know. Did you see him? No. Were you right next to him the whole time? Yeah, for about 20 to 30 minutes. Kelsey was in front of me, Tori was in front of me. I was standing right there, but I didn't hear what they said to each other, and I couldn't tell you what Tori looks like. She was so ready and eager to answer the question about Kelsey's demeanor and what Kelsey said to Meg, but refused to say anything, or just said, oh, I don't recall hearing anything. The investigator in the morning was really disappointing. The police officer was really disappointing. The trial is a search for the truth. And if you think the prosecution is putting on a fair, balanced search for the truth and that the media is biased or going against the prosecution, you have no idea. So we also had a cop testify in the morning.
All right, so I think y'all get it, but I'll just restate it. So basically, the cop, there was a bunch of different cops. Every cop basically has one of these people in cuffs. One's with Meg, one's with Tori, one's with, Kelsey. Kelsey's supposedly somewhat close to Meg, not to Tori. So Kelsey a little bit closer to Tori, at least within an earshot. And apparently, this is allegedly what happened. Tori asked if she's okay. Now, the prosecutor don't want that to be really a thing. Like, oh yeah, Tori was concerned for these women who are in a situation. They wanna kind of paint Tori as some maniacal, evil motherfucker who just shot somebody and was either trying to kill them.
I mean, this is worse than Lehman Brothers. My guess is Bankman may be arrested within the next week, and it's not a small jail term. I think that's a 20-year plus jail term. All right, let's take a look. Token price performance. So this is just the tokens that the FTX allegedly held. It's not going to really give us too much of a picture, right? Ultimately, we don't know the cash the company's held, so this isn't the whole balance sheet. That's the first thing I'd say. What's interesting is you can see that the balance sheet is given by hours. I'm not even used to seeing balance sheets by days, but they close their book every hour, which is a really surprising thing. A lot of the tokens show up at midnight for some reason on the 8th. Not sure why. Now this is already after the crisis was well underway. So after the crisis is well underway, we have a bunch of chains here. These might be customer assets. These might not be. I don't know. I don't see very big numbers here. I see a couple million here, a couple million there. This is, I guess, some kind of stake AVAX or something like that. That's the biggest number I see. That's 4.7 million. I see USDC on Uniswap of 2 million. Again, not very much at all. Ren BTC, that's some kind of wrapped Bitcoin, I'm guessing. We got another wrapped Bitcoin for 2 million. We've got DAI of a few million. There's 23 million of BNB, so that looks somewhat realistic. We have another 8 million of Binance's stablecoin. 10 million or 11 million of Ethereum, which sounds about right, or at least more realistic. $13 million of USDT, $100 million of FTX token, a negative amount of FTX token as well, interestingly. $50 million of Lido ETH, or ETH on Lido, or whatever that is. Well, that 900 million, so of the total sum, which is about 1.9 billion here in the bottom, which has dropped precipitously, you can see within hours, to 1.3 billion. And you can see the last frame this balance sheet has, there's a value of 1.3 billion of assets remaining. Now we know that there's an enormous amount of debt, and this does not necessarily reflect Almeida, it does not necessarily reflect FTX, we don't know for sure, but assuming this balance sheet is true.
I knew I must have done something wrong. Found her in my house. She's kind of...
I am out at her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so worried about her.
has been slain. Double kill. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Aced.
Espero que estés bien.
Whoever this interview is. Speaking of Drake, you're the one person who slew Drake. This nigga thing is like Dungeons and Dragons, nigga. You slew Drake. What the fuck? You slew Aubrey. The hell? Anyway, this was after you two got into a hip hop beef in 2018. You treated that moment as another job, another day on the job. But is there part of you that wears it as a badge of honor? And Pusha T says this: every time I hear a subliminal in one of his songs, it just lets me know how deep it hurt. Because it's been 4 years now, and you still talk about it. He is. I don't. Nigga, you talking about it right now. But every time it's a subliminal, I'm like, yes, it burns. It lets me know I love it. Damn. Drake implied that you took it to a level where both of y'all could never squash it. Obviously, things been quiet. Do you think you will ever jump out the window with a direct diss towards you? He says, we should see. I don't know what he'll do. But at this point, that's contradictory. Would he jump out the window? And he want to say I took it too far? Then he gonna tell people, tell the label, tell Jay Prince. My God, it's a lot. With all that being said, it's like I'm not interested anymore. I'm really not. Okay. And he confirms he's not the president of Good Music anymore. He says he's at Def Jam. He has a 50-50 venture with Def Jam for his own music and his own label. He said, but you're not tied to Good Music anymore in any way. He says, uh-huh. Damn. It don't look like he's beefing with Kanye, but he definitely don't want to stand next to none of Kanye's shit. So, it is what it is. All right, people. Milagro going live right now? Nah, Milagro about to wild out. This about to be good. This about to be good.
Dime qué tengo que hacer.
Alright, we just waiting on her to go live. Someone said Chuck putting belts to asses when he see that bitch push her teeth. Okay. Oh, we have another Lawyers for Workers update. We're working overtime right now.
About a juror having some potential improper contact. The internet was taking a tweet and running with it. That's not what the tweet said. So, first off, let's be clear on what the issue with the juror is. There's a juror who has an issue. Has nothing to do with contacting Tory's team. Their issue are medical doctor appointments that were preventing them from being able to attend the trial. They've told the judge, and now the judge is discussing with the lawyers whether, given this juror's need to show up to their doctor's appointments, they need to be replaced with an alternate. Separately, the prosecution has raised the issue that the jurors are walking in and out of the courtroom and don't always have a sheriff's escort with them. So the prosecution is saying that there is the potential for improper contact between jurors and members of the media, members of the audience, members of the public, and anybody in Tory's team. They could be walking into the building together. They could end up in an elevator together. And so, as a result, the prosecution is asking the judge to make sure that the sheriff's department escorts the jurors in and out of the courtroom and make sure that there is no improper contact between jurors and the defendant or the media or members of the public. That's all. I don't expect this to be a big issue. We will see if ultimately this juror gets replaced or not. But like I said, just not a big issue. All right, there was a report about a juror.
Man, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. They trying anything, bro. They trying anything, bro. All right, we back in, people. Ooh.
I tried to fix the lighting for you guys because I know that it's pretty dark in here. But if I put the shades up, then I'm really gonna look crazy. Cause you know, bitch, I need my filter. Need it, want it, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I'm gonna have it. So yeah, that's what happened. So now you gotta look at me kind of in the dark, but you can still see me, right? I still look sexy.
Come on, girl.
It's a light right over top of my head, but bitch, you can't believe what you're hearing about what. Thank you. I will stand up, bitch. I done took everything off, bitch. I'm in my drawers. And guess who else was in their drawers? Tory Lanez. Bitch, at the pool party. Y'all ready? Y'all ready to get into it? Yes. You can really see me better, but you know, it is what it is. Y'all ready for me to get started? So the channel come asking me redundant questions? And please tell Choke No Joke that we can talk. So I can add him up during this session once I get done, okay? Cool. Y'all ready? Cool. All right. So when we come back from lunch, it's a whole bunch of hoopla, bitch. It's a whole bunch of rah-rah shit going on. We waited up in that courtroom. We were supposed to come back from lunch at 1:30. We was up in that courtroom, bitch, from 1:45 to about 2:35, trying to figure out what in the hell is going on around this bitch. What in the fuck is going on? What have I heard? What were the whispers about? We can talk about that at a later time, because I'm hearing a lot of different things, and I want to put some more context, you know what I'm saying, to those things, and I want it to make sense. Okay, but we'll talk about it. But we had to sit wondering what was going on for like an hour, right? So at about 2:35, the jury comes back, and there was a concern about one of the jurors because someone went on social media, bitch, and said that the juror was in the elevator, with, the defense, maybe some members from the defense, in terms of maybe Tory, or I don't know what the fucking story is because I was not on said elevator. So I don't know who was on this elevator, but what I have been told is nothing out of whack took place. No conversation was had. People got on the elevator and got off. To solve that problem, make sure that your jurors have a way to get home. Make sure they have an escort going to where they need to be, and that wouldn't be an issue. We're in a public place. You got a lot of people trying to get to where they're going, and that's just that. Okay. EJ is here, right? So EJ has his wet and wavy, as I expected. And he had on like this hot pink blazer, and just a little one too, the pants and all that kind of shit like that. And so he comes up in the courtroom, and let me say this before I get started. EJ has been the most solid witness so far. Oh, yeah, put my cash up, bitch. Hold on. So EJ was the most level-headed, to me, the most honest and upfront nigga that came through I want to give a hand clap to EJ. I appreciate what he did today in terms of just coming and not wasting our time. I'm from Houston, Moniece. I like you, bitch. I've been liking you since Love and Hip Hop. Crazy ass. So, but I know you ain't crazy, bitch. I identify with a bitch like you, just like you. But anyway, yeah, EJ he did not waste our time, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you, EJ, because so many people have come through and wasted taxpayer dollars. I mean, it's okay, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars, but thank you for coming through and doing what you did. So moving on, bitch. First witness is EJ, Eric Culberson. And so they said, have you made have you made any statements about this case? He said no. Has anyone reached out to you? We talking about from any side? No. And then they said, how you feel about being here? And he said, who wants to be here? The fuck? And so they said, were you subpoenaed to be here? And he said, yeah. And then they said, let's go back, you know, to the night in question. Do
Yo,
you
tell him
remember
Big Ack is in the
Kylie's house?
building.
And then how that, you know, who was there when y'all got there? He said, first of all, I went with Megan and Kelsey. And when we got there, Corey, Kylie, and some of her friends and her security were there. All right? They said in 2020 about how long had you been knowing Megan? He said maybe about a year and some change. You know, I was a stylist and a friend. And then they said, okay, but on that night, you were also enlisted like as a driver. He was like, on that night, I did drive. And so they start asking, usually when you have security, they're the ones who pretty much handle things, the security. He said, yeah. They said when you don't have security, are y'all kind of out there on your own or what? And he said, yeah, you know, we protect ourselves. And so he said, well, how do you protect yourselves? What does that mean? He said, well, we have tasers and mace, and we'll have them in our duffel bags and shit. Now, bitch, I don't know about you.
Y'all from
But
Houston.
her security wasn't there that night. So whenever y'all wouldn't have security, you're telling me that you would have items to protect yourself. So now I'm already thinking in my little motherfucking head, bitch, could a gun be in a duffel bag? It's possible. Moving along. So they asked him how did he protect himself, what did that mean? They said besides a taser or pepper spray, were there any other weapons? And then he said, oh look, there go Act. Come on, Act. And I'm gonna keep on talking. Slide on in here. So, besides the taser and the pepper spray, have you seen any other weapons? He said, no, not that I've seen. They said any handguns? EJ said, get into this, bitch, salivating. EJ said, I've seen things that look like handguns. Anytime without security, have you seen guns? He said, I may have seen things in bags. Have you ever asked what the shit was in the bag? He said, no, because I mind my business. They said, what kind of protection, you know, did you have? When if there wasn't security, how would you protect me?
Yo, chat. Yo, tell her I think she tried to add me and blocked me from the live. I can't even see her live no more. It like kicked me out of the live. I'm not logged in on my account here though, so I'm watching here. But yeah, I think she accidentally blocked me.
It's a Kylie house, and who was over there? They said, he answers this question first. He said it was Kylie, Corey, and her security though. He said when we first got there, so now I'm finna talk to you without asking questions that the defense asked. I'm finna talk to you like I'm EJ, because it was easier for me to take notes that way to just say he said such and such, okay? All right. So EJ said when we first got there, Kylie showed us to a room to put our bags. So I dropped the bags down, and then we go downstairs. They said Kelsey was playing bill pong with Kylie's friends, and I was at the bar. They said about 15 minutes later, Megan came out. They said Megan joined in the party, and then, you know, was like, y'all having fun without me. And so she got in the mix, and then they got in the water. Now, EJ say, I do not drink, but they drank a good amount. They went through a few motherfucking bottles. That's what he said. So they said before Tori got there, how many, you know, how many bottles? What happened to Ack? I just tried to add him. Hold on. Bitch, I don't know.
I kid you not. I think I can't even see her live.
And then while we wait on him, I just sent you another.
Guess what?
Drop the bombshell.
And then EJ said, I even remember saying, damn, that's a lot of bottles. He said Kelsey was in the pool with Megan at the time. He said, I ended